Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today I'm lucky to get on board Mary. She's been a friend of mine for a bit, and it took a while to get her on board and to convince her to come and share her stories. But today we're lucky enough to get her on. So Mary, thanks a lot for coming on board.
Well, thanks for asking me. I'm a little nervous about it, but yeah, I do want to share some stories. I
Good.
think you might enjoy them.
You'll do fine. You'll do fine. So are there any stories in particular you want to get into, or perhaps start talking about what's happened, some of the visions or dreams you had that are a bit, surreal when you were...
I'll start by with I guess a little background. This pretty much started out with through meeting my what was going to become my husband, and I was dating him, and he told me, he said, well, I just want you to know, if you hang out with me long enough, you're probably going to see UFOs and aliens. And I'm like, I could not believe he would say that to me, because I thought that it was his way in which he didn't want to say, I don't want to date you. I'm just going to tell you something so outrageous that you'll dump me. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to watch this guy, because he doesn't seem crazy in any other way. So I watched him, and eventually it's like, no, he's not, out there. He's not lost his mind or anything. And these things started come to pass. What he said was the absolute truth. Mm-hmm. And but it was, for me, that was very, very hard to hear, in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But and there was a period of time in which I had quite a bit of chronic pain and issues, and he did a meditation, and he asked, I guess the aliens or the sky people, whatever you want to call them, to come and give me a healing. And that's really how it all began, was by kind of like him introducing me to this phenomena.
So he broke the ice, and yeah. From henceforth that you started having experiences.
Yes, and I never would have. I mean, it was a radical change in my belief system, and everything else. Like, for instance, my husband, he is into Bigfoot research, and he would have these kind of like these senses, and he said, I want to go to this mountain, and I think they're going to be there. I'm like going, how can you do this without going and ground truthing and going out and seeing for yourself? And so we went, and that was the first time I saw a shadow person. And I was alone, and on this creek or whatever, and I saw them, heard the whistle, so much like Bigfoot. All these, like, either these kind of like legends kind of overlap with one another. And so that's the first time I saw a shadow person, and hearing this thing walk around me at night. Of course we were thinking Bigfoot, but it was like just a shadow figure. So I don't know the correct terminology for what I saw.
So how did it look like? Was it big?
Oh yeah, it was it wasn't extremely huge. It was maybe 7 foot, and very very trim, powerful, all black, but I couldn't see the whole face. I could not see the face.
So totally out of place for an NBA All-Star to be in the woods.
Yeah, we were 4 hours in on conservation land, not on a trail. We're just bushwhacking it, and to see that there when there is no trail, it was first off, it was very scary for me, because I couldn't see something. I couldn't see. It was early spring, and so the leaves were tiny on the trees. I could hear a whistle of something intelligent, not a bird whistle, but a whistle, and then I could see nothing, and I was all alone because I'd walked off and left the guys at the camp. And so I had to turn around from that, and that was really hard for me.
What time did this happen?
It was probably early May in Western Maine.
The hours, let's say. What time?
Oh, the time, gosh, I have no idea. probably it was after, it was a morning, probably early, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, because I probably get up earlier from the daylight and camping, or maybe even probably 8 o'clock,
Okay.
something like that, 8 or not 9, but definitely early. And so just right away, and right off the bat, something occurred.
So was it kneeling? Was it standing?
No, it was parallel. It was paralleling me. I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and it was running. And when it ran, when I saw the figure running, and then I looked, and it disappeared behind a tree. And so then I went over the rise there to look to see if anything was there. There was nothing there. And so I thought, well, that's really scary. Because my heart fluttered like a freaking rabbit when that happened, because I was alone. And also I saw something that turned out to not be there. And I thought, you know what, this is crazy. I'm just scaring myself because I'm alone in the woods, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that girl, I'm just going to keep on going. And that's when I kept on walking. And finally, that's when I but I heard the whistle, because it was like, but I could see nothing there.
So was it trying to communicate with you? Because that's not the first time I'm hearing about, the whistle thing.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Fascinating. Yes, I think it was basically like, okay, she ignored seeing me. Now I'm going to be directly in front of her and whistle, and so then I definitely knew. Or perhaps they could tell what I was thinking. It's like, okay, I just imagined this, or made it up, or I scared myself. Mm-hmm. But I did not make up a whistle. I didn't do that.
Okay.
So, and then I turned around, and my husband had worried about me. And so he had been following me. And so I met up with him, and I told him about it, and he was quite excited. So
none of of your friends or your husband whistled you, though. So the whistle really came from the.
No, the whistle came from the woods, not from them.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was not them.
Because I imagine you would have known where the direction the whistle came from.
Yes, there was nothing ahead of me, and I could see clearly because the leaves in the trees were just tiny buds. So. Wow. Yeah, so it was crazy. And then we also went up there again with this other couple doing a Bigfoot thing, and amazing. The girl, the wife, and I could hear a hoot and a whistle, but the men could not, and we were in the same thing. So it was like, how is this that she and I can hear something and the men couldn't? Because they had hooted at us on our way out of the woods.
So you heard owls?
Oh yeah, we heard no, not no, it wasn't a hoot of an owl. It was like more like a I can't, more like the classic Bigfoot hoot, you know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah, whoop. I'm sorry, okay. I used the wrong word.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so yeah, we heard that, and it was only something that the women could hear.
Okay, strange.
So that blows my mind. How is this selective reality? Mm-hmm. So we had that occurred, and then we did countless trips, but there were several times where I felt like when I was camping that something was going to touch my back. Like I felt like something was behind me, and I'd sit up and I'd say, hey, or hello, or just something, because I felt like something was right there behind me. And then I thought, you know what, I think something is trying to actually communicate with me, or, and I had told my coworker at work, because I tell her my stories, and I said, you know what, if they try to touch me, I think they're trying to help me, and then so the next time we went camping, I was laying on the ground, in my sleeping bag with my little puppy, and then I heard I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that, I heard what sounded like insect chatter. I know this sounds crazy, but insect chatter, like, and I had the feeling like there was multiple things chattering like insects and talking like above me. Now I have the sleeping bag over my head because it's cold, and so, but then I started feeling, I heard this sound. I think there was a sound, and it felt like almost like a magnet, or like, have you ever heard of these transcranial magnet type things? Well, I felt like something was circling my head, above my head, and it almost felt like, I can't describe it. Almost like a magnet, as if you were magnetized, like
Okay.
that kind of a feeling. And then in the end, and it was getting closer and closer, and then finally, like almost like a jolt of electricity went down straight to my head, and then my whole spine, just like my whole body just jumped, like I got a shock or something.
Oh.
You
Could,
know, but not.
like some talk about Kundalini stuff, that they feel the energy going from the bottom of the spine upwards. But
Yeah, this was the other way, the head, and then, but it was very interesting because, and I didn't do anything because I had already said, I already determined in my head, I'm just gonna try to be cool about things, just to see what this is all about.
Mhm.
And another thing is, my little dog had lifted her head, so I knew that I wasn't like in a dream.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it was interesting, very, very interesting. So that was, and so then 2 days later, I go to my ophthalmologist because to have my eyes checked, because I'm a glaucoma suspect, and so they did the what do you call it? The optic nerve. They scanned my eyes, and apparently I had the best visual field test I've done in years, and my the optic nerve in my left eye, which had kind of thinned with glaucoma, it had thinned, it had re-thickened. So it had basically had a healing of that my eyes were better.
Oh.
And so you should have seen my ophthalmologist look on his face. He was all like, what, because he was very much surprised. And I said, yeah, this is, you've had the best in years, and your optic nerve has thickened, like this doesn't happen, and I told him, I said, well, I'm taking vitamins. Anyway,
Wow.
so I think that was the one that story ended up being in Preston's book, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Because I mean, I guess I could, if I really wanted to, I could go get my medical records, because that would show, because they write the details of how thick things are to progress your eyes as they age. I could do that, and I never got that for him, but I should have done that.
Oh. I contacted Preston to get his to tell him that I'm gonna link his book in the video, and he was really happy and stuff. So I'd really like to to get him on. And
Yeah.
some of my friends have bought his books, and they're amazed. So there's at least two I'm going to purchase pretty soon.
Yeah.
So do you want to get into the well, because you've sent me images.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories that you might share that you haven't drawn that you might want to get into now?
Gosh, there's so many of them. There are so many of them that I can't even. Like I just want to say that areas, that there's something special about area like mountains and lakes, and there's kind of a links in my mind, or parallels to like shamanic beliefs, because we go to this mountain, and these like spiritual type beings or whatever, or some kind of things are happening there. Very, very, very strange, very, very strange things that have occurred. Like, for instance, one thing that just as an example of, like, I call them dreams, but I don't know if it's another reality or what. Like, I had a dream. We were camping out there, and my husband and I was in a zero gravity chair, so I could lay down and not touch the ground, because of whatever, it's more comfortable that way. and then I felt like that there were three beings around me. I didn't open my eyes because I didn't want to freak out. And I had three puppies, because our dog had puppies. I had three puppies with me, and in my sleeping bag. And I thought, the thought came into my head, well, that's kind of cute or whatever, but why would I be saying that to myself in the middle of the night? And then what I felt like is that my whole lawn chair was picked up and floated away. I know that sounds crazy, but the interesting part, I thought, because in the morning, but I didn't open my eyes in the morning, because I had that really physical sensation that happened. I talked to Michael, and he said, I dreamt that I looked at you in the middle of the night and you were gone. Your chair was gone. He said, I was awake. He said, he didn't actually say dream. He contends that he was 100% awake and that I was gone. So it's a very strange, like in my mind, I'm thinking there's got to be a reality in which I never moved anywhere. And then there's this other reality in which this other things can occur. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like two realities a little bit, or no?
Well, yeah, but maybe your conscience went somewhere else, but your physical body was still, camping.
Yeah. And he saw the same thing.
Like an OBE of sorts. Well, yeah, an OBE.
Yes, basically. And on another occasion when I brought my friends over camping, I felt, do you know that feeling of when you're kind of like almost like paralyzed and then lifted off your bed? You know that feeling?
Yep.
Okay. I enjoy talking to you because you can say yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, it was the same type of thing. I was lifted up out of where I was laying down after a healing and the energy healing, and I was lifted up, and I felt like it was my spirit body was carried. It carried and went away to the mountains.
Yeah. The night before meeting my current girlfriend, I'm not sure if I did describe this so far, but on YouTube. But the night before we were meeting up, she's an experiencer. That we talked about it beforehand.
Yeah.
And I'm an experiencer, and so I was at the hotel just like a few kilometers or miles away from her house, and I wasn't expecting anything to happen. I was just there to meet her and have breakfast and so on. And during the night, so I'm sleeping on my stomach, but I feel like I can't move, but I'm sort of conscious of what's happening, and I feel two hands on either side of my body. Mm-hmm. I felt them, and then I'm feeling I'm being pushed from one side of the bed to the other, like I'm gliding.
Wow.
And then the thought that came to me was, oh my God, I'm being abducted. So what I did, I was super happy for some reason. Telepathically, I try to send love to whatever's pushing me. Nice. As soon as I do that, in my head, I hear a high-pitched screech sound, like not human, like something you'd see in a horror movie, like very high-pitched, animal, insect-like. And I thought, oh my God, it's probably a mantid. And then, so again, I'm being pushed from one side of the bed, still gliding. I send them love again, and again, I hear a high-pitched screech.
That must be good though, right? I
don't know, but maybe like, oh my God, he's awake.
Yes.
But okay, I'm far from over. So by the time I'm on the other side of the bed, in between the bed and the wall, I feel I'm being pushed forward through the headboard of the bed, the wall, and then it's because my head was against the wall, so I know I was probably going through it, and then I feel I'm going upwards, and then my conscience blacks out. I wake up in the bed. Hours later, I go on Facebook right away and I start typing it down, but I don't talk about the screech sounds. Okay. A few hours later, so yeah, of course I fall back asleep. A few hours later, I'm on Facebook, and my soon-to-be girlfriend writes down, "Hey, I had an experience last night. It's weird. I'm in bed. I feel like I'm getting these huge pillows on either side. Like she can't see anything, but she's conscious, and she's feeling these huge pillows being tucked on either side of her body, and being like really like like a huge hug, but it was a bit painful. So she says, "Stop doing this. You're hurting me." And then, with her mind, and as soon as she says that, she starts hearing a high-pitched screech sound.
Wow.
But she heard it 3 times. And then she blacks out after that. So, but she didn't read, I never wrote down about the high-pitched screeches. So as soon as she said that, my jaw dropped. Because, oh my God, we had the same experience. So they came for us that same night, and we got abducted probably. So
Yeah.
that was creepy.
Yeah, no, that's I would find that fascinating, except for screeching. I don't like screeching noises, you know.
But was it like a high vibratory type of speech that I couldn't understand? Or was it something else? Or it could have been their, you know, their natural way of talking. Who knows? But
I don't know.
So, but yeah, sometimes when you sleep, you can't just put aside or whatever happened, because sometimes, you know, just to relate to your stuff, sometimes things do happen. It's just that we don't understand what went on.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we do one of the images, like should we start with the red eyes?
The red eyes. Yeah. So where did that happen?
That happened out while we were camping. And the story behind that is that my friend from work, and she's a scientist with a PhD and everything, but she's also very sensitive and psychics. You know, she's a very special lady. She wanted to go the Bigfooting camping with us, and my husband did a meditation, and he actually even drew a picture of kind of like, I don't know, a vision of what we're going to be. He put a Bigfoot, he put me in there, he put the car and my friend in the car for some reason, and also kind of like a UFO in there. So he did this drawing, you know, and I didn't pay much attention to it, but basically everything in the drawing came true. And so when we get there, you know, Michael's already laying down. I guess he's okay with me saying his name. Michael's already laying down, kind of semi-asleep, and she and I are just sitting by the campfire. And then what occurs is that we both of us hear footsteps in the leaves, but nothing's there. Absolutely nothing's there. And I'm used to that by now, because they would do that. But she wasn't. So she immediately got up and was spooked. And I said, no, they're fine. I did an introduction. I don't know what their names are, but whatever. I said, Annie, no, they're really, really nice. They're polite. They're helpful. And so, we started doing she calmed down a little bit. So she had these divining rods or dowsing rods. And so we started asking questions. And one of the questions I asked was, I said, do you know what's in our thoughts? And the answer was yes. And my next question, and you still like us, is my question. And she said she heard laughter. I said, because I was like kind of shocked. It's like, if they know what's in our minds, how could they possibly like us? You know what I mean? Because you just never know what you're going to think. So we were asking questions, and then I was like looking up into the darkness, and I saw these 2 red, like those classic alien shaped eyes, you know. But I said, what is that? Is that like a reflection from like my husband's audio recording equipment? And it wasn't like that. And I had this little tiny headlamp on that had a red light, and I turned that on. And then finally, because I was thinking, what's that light coming from? And finally the eyes blinked. And that's when I know, because I was trying to figure out, because it was like probably 14, either between 13 and 15 foot up were the eyes. It was huge. So the eyes were as big as my hand.
Okay.
The eyes were huge. So whatever it was extremely tall, and it was almost like had a quality of like self-illuminated, like there was almost like it was like liquid, but it was like these red eyes. And so you know, and so I asked, it's like we were still doing the question, she would not look, like if you show the photo, she would not look at it. And I said, don't, and I was trying to get somebody to look at besides me. I said, come on, guys. I mean, there's huge red eyes, you know, and he was kind of like in a state. He could not get up at all. And my friend was too scared to look at it. She said, no, this is just for you, is what they were saying. This is just for you. And because I asked her to look at it, she says, no, I'll be too scared. This is for you. And so I kind of looked at it until I couldn't look at it anymore, because I felt like it was such a shock to me that I felt like my knees would buckle. Wow. If I continued looking in those eyes. And so I just kind of like, you know, in kind of like deference, I just put my head down and I continued. I said, well, thank you, you know, for showing your, you know, for making your appearance, because I've been hearing this thing in the woods for months. And then it showed itself.
Well, yeah, the more you look at it, the more it becomes real. And you know, as time passes, it's like you're not really communicating, right, but you're connecting, and then it becomes really personal. And that I guess, yeah, I would be afraid too. Yeah,
no, I mean, it was like and at the time I was just like really, I was going to be polite, because if you are, one of the questions we asked was that, how old are you? Because we still had the presence of mind to be asking questions. And it was like between more than 200 and then less than 250. So between 200 and 250 years, you know, and I had, you know, and they had really wanted to talk to my husband bad. They wanted to talk to him, you know, but he was in a state. He was not, you know.
In my last interview, I did, I did a family of experiencers, and you know, the first one, the aunt had a Bigfoot experience.
Yeah.
And there was communication to and fro, and I believe they give her presents, but they told her once like that they're not a circus. And I found that really funny, because, you know, we always want to see them and stuff, but again, it's not a show.
Exactly. And I always felt like, no, I've always been very polite. I don't, my husband's more about gathering evidence, but I'm not like he's like a researcher. I'm not really like a researcher. I mean, I go out and I experience things and I appreciate, and what I do is that I consider, because I asked him, I said, I apologized, because for the first time we went there, because I feel like we disturbed the ground. Oh. We disturbed their area. Because it was like me, my husband, and his friend. And when I saw that shadow figure, you know, that trip, when we got there, the next day that we got up, it was broad daylight, no wind, but it felt like huge trees were crashing all around us. Like you didn't know if there was going to be a tree falling on you, because we hear all this crashing. And so we never found any evidence of trees falling down, but it's like boom, you know, that crack and then boom of a huge tree falling. And so I felt like I needed to apologize, because we obviously we went there somehow my husband had keyed in to a spot to go, and it was there, and it had been beautifully moss covered and things like that. And other times we go back, it just never looked as beautiful anymore. So I apologized about that, and then I asked permission if we can come back, and they said yes. So it was like yes. So I figured it cannot hurt to be polite. Mm-hmm. You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's the same when you do CE5s. Of course, it's not a show, so yeah, you should be at least respectful to you know, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they do take the time to show up, and yeah, you know, like, you know, last year's CE5, I did, you know, I had a show that lasted about 10 minutes. So again, I thank them a lot, and you know, they went on their way. But nice. So do you want to get to the Spider-Man photo?
Oh yeah, the Spider-Man photo occurred because after I saw the red eyes, even though I was trying to be calm about it, even at work, I could not even look at the image of red eyes on my on the computer or anything like that, because it would scare me, because of the association. You grow up, you hear about demons and things like that. And so looking at it, it was like, you know, it was scaring me more after the fact, that incident, than at the time, even though I felt like my legs would buckle. So what happened is that when I had a vision or a dream, in which I was outdoors enjoying the blue sky, and then there were some clouds that had kind of cleared. It's almost like a Monty Python thing. And then there was a vision of an alien with eyes, but his eyes, instead of red, same shape or similar shape, they were whitish. And so in my mind, I thought, oh, that's kind of like Spider-Man. Why am I worried about the color? You know what I mean? Why am I worried? You know, so I almost felt like they did that for my sake, because they could tell how much I had been affected, you know, and had been a little bit fearful. And because that's the one thing that did really shake me, you know. So I can imagine that they don't come out that often, because people would get scared, you know.
Did you see any details of the body? Was it wearing anything, or was it just bare skinned?
I couldn't really tell. On this one, if you want to should we skip to this one?
Okay,
no?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this one appeared in my bedroom. It started out as a kind of like a healing, and I don't know if this is familiar to other people, but when you start receiving an energy healing, your body feels like a slight vibration throughout your body, and pain goes away. You don't realize it's like, oh, I don't have pain. And so it was focused on my left hip for some reason. I don't know why. And it was getting really, really uncomfortable. And then that's when what I felt like almost like silk sheets were being pulled out underneath me, even though that couldn't possibly have happened. And then I was immediately sat up in bed, and this guy appeared, and he was thin. He had really either wrinkled skin or a wrinkled outfit. He had brilliant blue eyes, and then the whole room was pink, with this rounded, strange door and simple step behind him. And then I, you know, just out of, I guess, being silly, I was looking at it, so, well, you know, I was thinking, okay, this is my first alien that I see, and it's like almost like cartoonish. And I said, well, you're really cute, because of his brilliant blue eyes. And so he does this little sidestep in which he goes off behind this little wall, comes back, and his eyes are brilliant yellow, which I didn't like the yellow eyes that much. And so then he just kind of like waved to me like, okay, it's time to go. You know, it's like I was no longer in my bedroom. And so I thought, because it's wintertime, I thought, okay, well, I got to get my coat. And so I reached down, and of course it wasn't my room, you know. So, and then that's the last I remember, you know. So it's just really interesting that I would see, like, even the texture of it almost looked like paint. It's like, it was very fascinating to me, because I feel like the images that we see may not actually be the real images. Does that make sense to you?
They do use they might project something else to you, and
Yeah.
maybe it knew that, you know, the color of the eyes might affect how you might perceive it, so they might have used blue. I've heard a lot about the color blue that they use, because, you know, the wavelength of the color, perhaps. They can use that to control us, to sort of calm us down.
It is strangely appealing. It was strangely appealing. Oh, look at those blue eyes, you know. But I didn't like the yellow. You know,
Okay.
it is interesting.
I've had an experience once with a wrinkled gray, but of course, you know, I can't really prove it. A few years ago, I didn't know I had a whole bunch of gallbladder stones, and, you know, it was blocking my bile. And as soon as I ate something fatty, I was in huge pains. And, I was at my dad's house, and I called to my star family to help me, because I didn't know what was going on. And that same night, I wasn't expecting anything, but I dreamt I was seeing the face of a gray. It was super wrinkled, like an old prune. Okay, all I saw was the face, and I saw it's like this, like no thumb, but, you know, 3 fingers and a thumb. Okay, and its hand was over my chest, scanning me. And how I saw it was as if you were at the pub or a dance, and you have this strobe light flashing, and
Yeah.
so you get like an on and off. You'd see the person, you won't. You'd see the person, you won't. So that's what I was seeing. I was seeing the gray flashing, her hand, her face, and I felt she was female. The energy she was projecting was female. I couldn't believe it. But that's how it felt. Imagine like your mom. You feel your mom, but it was if my mom was scanning me, but it was female. And after that, I woke up the next morning. I still had the problem, but I felt I was being scanned or looked on. It was really weird, but it was really wrinkled. I would have never dreamt of seeing a wrinkled gray, but I did. And I think it's an elder of sorts.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because of the wrinkled skin on this one, and another time when I saw a much more realistic one than this in my bedroom, and I kind of wondered, it's a different story because I had been dreaming, or perhaps they set up a scenario. I had been dreaming that my husband, there was this old rickety building, and my husband, it was kind of leaning, and my husband halfway put like a stick or a log to help hold it up. And I was thinking that's not going to work. And then I could see the building starting to fall on him, and it got me in such a panic that I was like going, no, I don't want this to happen. And then I got angry, and then I started with my anger. I created like this freaking ball of like light in my dream, but then immediately with that anger, I felt the buzzing of, like, how when they do almost like they do kind of like an energy healing, you feel like it's almost like an electric thing immediately when I was having those emotions. And then I just kind of calmed down, and that's when I decided to open my eyes, and I saw a very skeletal looking, very hyper realistic alien face. It was very, very skeletal, and I looked at him. He was in my room while this either zapping or whatever it was, the healing on my head going on, and I said, I see you, and strangely enough, he had some letters just appear, you know what I mean, or or whatever. I don't know. It was very, very strange. But what the point being is that it's almost like I was in a situation in which they put me in a situation in which I had a strong emotional reaction in my dream, and that's what they were cueing in on, and I have no idea about that, but to see such a hyper realistic, quite a bit scarier looking face than the friendlier looking one.
I think they're testing us because they're trying to learn about emotions.
Yeah.
And let's say there is a hybrid program going on. So let's say you've got like a hybrid gray, like half gray, half human, raised on board a ship. But if they were going to be integrated onto Earth, well, they still need to learn about these emotions. And since they're being like they're half, they might not have that same range of emotions. So they could be trying to test. They're testing you to see how you might react, and they might teach those reaction to others.
That kind of makes sense, because there was another time in which I dreamt that I had a baby right there with me in my bed, and I had a fan going. It was summertime, and so I'm dreaming, so I picked the baby. I mean, I would just roll the baby over away from the fan because I don't want it to be too cold, and I have the baby right there, and then and I have this because I think I have a baby, you know what I mean, in this dream. And so so I have the baby to my head, touching foreheads and stuff like that, and then I once again I get that zapping, not zapping, but that electric feeling, almost like I don't know what, but once again there was the emotion of like protectiveness and love toward a baby, and then that's when they were like, that thing happened. And so then I immediately started pulling the baby away because I don't want it to be any harm to come to it. And then I look up, and my ceiling is not quite my ceiling, and then I see this feminine hand pulling out going basically through the ceiling, and it had this like black type of needle thing, and then it was gone. It was so weird. It was like almost like the female doctor in that other drawing I did.
Wow.
So it was very, very strange.
So
Does that even make sense to you?
was the needle the cause of your dream, and you were somewhere else?
I don't know. But there was a needle involved. There was a all I know is that I felt like I was put into protective mom mode. When you put a baby near to me, I'm gonna be like more protective. I think they were almost manipulating my emotions, I think.
Because sometimes when you're on board a craft, they tend to show, well, for females at least, they bring their, if you're part of the hybrid program, they bring and they show you one of your children. So they always want you to mother it. So
yep.
Was that a sort of preparation of something that might have happened?
Perhaps, and who knows, when they were working on that hip area, maybe it was more than just helping me out. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
So
for me, the meeting, little girls.
The little girls. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this was like what I thought was a dream. I'll put the dreams in quote because it's almost like a kind of a, so what basically happened, I was in this dream in which I was in this apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. And then I had, for some reason, I heard a noise. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember offhand. I heard a noise. So I go from the bedroom to the living room where there's a big picture window. And then I see a little white rabbit, like a little tiny bunny, and I thought, oh, how cute. And so I go forward, and then there's also, I pick it up, and then it turns out to be like a wind-up toy, from a real looking bunny to a wind-up toy. And then I see also there's these toys that are appearing that are silver, almost like a Rubik's Cube. It's like a geodesic Rubik's Cube or something like that. And they are opening, and they're very sparkly and kind of like magical. And so I'm thinking that my husband is in the other room in my mind. And so I go back into the room. I said, Michael, you have to see this. And so I grabbed him by the arm, and it felt like his wrist. And it felt like his wrist. It was, his thick wrist, that just familiar to me. I know what he feels like. And so I'm bringing him by the arm in there, and then I look at him, and instead of it being him, it's an Asian woman who has a nice haircut, and it's like she's dressed up like a doctor in some kind of white outfit. And so I thought, well, this is strange, but doesn't matter. I want her to see this stuff. And then when I'm going to show the toys, then the door opens, and these 2 little girls walk in. They're short now, either between like maybe the ages of either like big toddlers or young elementary school kids, and one has blonde hair and blue eyes, and the other one is more olive toned and curly, kind of wavy, almost like a Indian type of Indian look to her. And so I see, that's my husband.
Hey, Mike.
And so I see, so I go to the little girl, the blonde haired girl, and I ask her, I said, well, what's your name? I lean down, I said, what's your name? And she says in this really baritone masculine voice, Harry, like a deep, deep man's voice. And I was like, I was like, stepped away from her because that was just like really, really surprising. And so I turned to look at the little dark haired girl, and then she had olive skin, but then past that, around facing her frame, she had probably like greenish skin, like green. And that just kind of like shocked me. And it's like, I didn't even ask her name, It's like, so the next thing that happens was that somehow either somebody said, or it was said or thought that it's time to lay down. So they helped me lay down. The 2 little girls are incredibly strong, and they helped me lay down. And then the doctor lady was there, and basically what I saw was, I thought, my husband's talked about implants. I said, I think I've heard of this before. I said, people never really find out what the meaning of it, or what's, what it's for. And the woman kind of agreed, no, they don't. They never really find out. And there was basically kind of like a needle and some black tubing or something like that. And she did some kind of injection above my left ankle. I know that sounds weird, but we can also put this off as very strange.
But you were in pain. You did feel the needle.
No, I wasn't in any pain. I've never been in any pain from any of this. The only time was that hip thing got uncomfortable. But it's almost as if when they do the vibration, there is no pain. They do something to you in which you feel vibration and there is no pain. So
did you feel something at the puncture mark?
Yeah, the next day, yeah, I had a lump. There.
So
and but
that could be proof of something happened, because that's what you're describing is typical, like an abduction where they bring you on a examining table.
Yeah.
You've got the doctor, but you've got their sort of nurses that help you onto the bed.
Yeah.
But again, what you were seeing, like your gray might have been like four feet tall, and so they're the worker grays, and the fact that you were seeing like a greenish skin,
yes,
might be that you were seeing something like beyond what they were trying to project.
Right. Like, yeah, that it was very strange, very strange. And then that was basically it, and I don't know how these things occur, or why these things happen, and how to tell the difference between that and a regular dream, other than the fact that you wake up with some, a lump in your ankle,
Well, they're very good at it, because again, they get you at night.
Yeah.
You wake up and everything's okay, so you sort of shrug it off.
Yeah.
Until you get corroboration from someone else that went through the same thing later on.
Oh gosh, can I tell you a story about that?
Yeah, good. You go ahead.
Okay. So, and it was shortly after like the red eye painting, because I was stuck. I was freaked out about the question. I said, well, do you really know what's in our mind? Do we know our thoughts? And my friend had indicated that the answer was yes. But I thought, well, maybe my friend was wrong, because she's doing these dowsing rods. Maybe she got it wrong. And so I was at my house. We have a loft, and I was looking down at my husband cleaning out the wood stove. And my little dog Blue was like looking, trying to see what he was doing, and there's hot ashes there. So I thought, oh my God, what would happen if Blue got in the wood stove, which is ridiculous. I thought, well, I'd have to pull him out by his tail. So that was the thought, which is a ridiculous thought, because it's hot coals, glowing hot coals. He'd never go in there. But, but it was a random thought that I had, because I was looking down on him. Well, 2 days later, I'm awake in the morning. I'm awake, but I'm just laying around in bed. And my husband was waking up, and he was awake. And then he was just laying there, and he goes, he probably cussed. He said, oh my God, and I said, what? He said, that's not my thought. He said, that's not my thought. I know that's not my thought. And I said, what? He said, Blue was in the wood stove. I had to pull him out by his tail. And I thought, that was my thought from 2 days ago, but what I hadn't realized, what I did, I didn't say anything to him till 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I said, do you want to really be freaked out? And I told him, and he said, why didn't you say something earlier? I just thought I've been losing my mind all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the answer. See, they basically answered my question of like, can you really know what we think? I don't know. It's like, so they showed me, and this has happened several times. I've had questions, and then my poor husband actually experiences the answer.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but it happened, and I could bring him down here to talk about it.
Wow.
But maybe another time.
Yeah.
Because you could hear the other side of it.
But yeah, that's still super cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And other strange things, many strange things have happened. But let's go on to another picture. We haven't done.
Oh, the shaman. Oh, yeah.
Oh, what does it look like? The shaman.
The shaman. Yeah.
Oh, this one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This was. I woke up in the middle of the night, very tired. I thought I was awake, but it could also be the lucid dream. And then I see this this Indian man meditating. He has a gold glow to him, and he's small. He's small, and he's sitting on my bed, and he's meditating, and he's not looking at me. He's not saying anything. His eyes are half closed, like a classic meditation. And then when I move slightly, he disappears entirely. So that I stay still, and then he reappears. And I just observe him for a bit. And then a little bit later, this metal disc appeared in the room. And I grabbed it with both of my hands. And then and from that disc, I could feel vibrations through my body, and my body began to levitate by holding on to this metallic disc. And I have no idea what that's about. I don't know. I have no idea, but that was either the vision, lucid dream, whatever it was. But it was a very strange, very striking thing. And what I really kind of feel like the message of this was to meditate. You know, that perhaps I'd improve my communication or get more answers through meditation. I don't know.
I believe so. When like, you know, the experience I talked about, you know, the typewriter before before we started filming, back in 2012, right before the so-called end of the world, I started meditating. My British abductee fiance at the time said, you know, meditate and speak to the stars and star family and whatnot. So I started meditating for half an hour each day. And maybe like a few weeks in, I go to bed not expecting anything. So, but what I'm seeing as soon as I close my eyes was like when you go into a drive-in theater, and there was a projection on the back of my eyelid, my left eye, because I'd open my eyes, I'd see nothing. I close my my right eye, there's nothing. I close my left eye, and then I'd see the projection. And what I was seeing was somebody typing on a very old black typewriter. You know, the ones that you have to push the thingy. And so the feeling that I got from that was to blog my stories, to write them down. So the next day I started writing them down on a spiritual site. The events that happened before, you know, like during my life that I couldn't explain, but I felt compelled to write them down. So you know, during that same day, you know, the day after the vision, whatever, I start writing them down. And at night, before going to bed, I start meditating for half an hour. I go to bed, not expecting anything, because, you know, I'm all new to this. I close my eyes, I see the same black box, and within that black box, instead of a typewriter, I'm seeing two hands shaking on it. So as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, okay, they're congratulating me on something that they wanted me to do. So, but you know, that was the only time that ever happened again. I meditated after that, and after I was at my dad's house, we were doing a sort of Zoom gathering with people from Australia, other experiencers. I meditated with them and we were playing music, and I went to bed. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I forgot about this. As soon as I closed my eyes, I saw the side view of a man's head. And as soon as I concentrated on that, it turned and it looked back at me.
Oh my God.
And the man was bald, and I couldn't see like any details of the face, but it turned around looking back at me. As soon as I saw that, it's as if I was like remote viewing for the first time. And then as soon as I said, oh my God, he's looking back, and poof, I sort of unconnected myself.
Yeah.
And a few nights later, meditating too, I woke up at night, and as soon as I woke up, I heard this voice stuck right in front of my face said, I need your help.
Oh my God.
Right here. And I thought, okay, what was that? So as soon as I do, I said, I heard that. I called out to Star Family and all the souls that work with me to help whatever said, I need your help. And the night after, during the night, I got a whole bunch of taps on my thigh. Like, thank you. And that's it.
Wow.
So yeah, things happen when you meditate. So that's the whole purpose of the story. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so what's our next picture?
Children and energy bubbles.
Oh yeah. This actually probably happened shortly after this. I was in bed. I had well, I guess the background on that is that I had been kind of like mourning my son had gone out of state, to live with his dad, and I was missing him, because I wanted more time with him, but things happen for a reason, I guess. And so I had that sadness, deep sadness in me that I couldn't shake, and so one night I was laying in the bed, and then I felt like something more towards like either hands, like on my ankles, and then maybe on my shoulders, and then I was laying on my side, but then I was rotated and then pretty much floated out of the roof and into my backyard. Now it was wintertime, but when I arrived there in the backyard, I was not cold. There was no physical coldness, things like that made no sense. And then I was looking out around, I saw the trees, at the backyard and things like that. And I see all these little balls of light, in a big ring around me, and it was not close to me. It was, spaced really far out. And I'm watching them. And as I'm watching them, they're going around and they're also getting bigger. And it's like there was like kind of a swirling color to them. In them, and then I realized as I look at it, there are actually figures in there. There's like human figures in it, and then the next thing I look, they're actually people. They're actually kids of like different ages or whatever, walking around me. And I'm looking, and I thought, well, this, and I said out loud, I said, well, this must be like what Dr. Johnson, it's a Bigfoot researcher, must see. That was just a thought that came to my head. I thought it was Bigfoot related. And then there was the masculine voice. It's almost like a guide that's always behind you. And I don't know why these things are always behind you, whether it's actually a person or if it's just a voice in the back of your head. Do you know what I'm saying? It said, it said, these are your children. That was it. It was like, and there probably was like 50 of them. Wow. And then first thing I said was, no wonder they're so good looking, is what I said. Because I don't know, I wanted to be funny. And I started looking around, and I could see, so many. And then I was looking for my son, the son I'm missing, right now. And so I looked and I found him, but he was way whiter than he normally is, and there was like highlights of blonde in his dark hair. And then I just grabbed him by the shoulders, and I said, do you want anything? Do you need anything? And there was no response. So it could be all just delusion, but it's also very much like the lesson perhaps there was, you've been here lifetimes. These are your kids, not just the one life. Is that could be the possible meaning behind it. Other things I don't know. I just have the one kid, but that was kind of like the feeling I got, was like to show that we go on. You know what I mean? We go on in life, many lifetimes. It's like basically, why cry for the one when you've had so many?
Yeah. Well, that's why I tell myself, I don't have kids. But, if this ain't my first lifetime, I've probably had kids in other lifetimes. Yes. So
yes,
just enjoy life and do what you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Energy and chest.
Oh, goodness. This was a tremendous event. I had a hard time sleeping that night. And so, and I don't know why. I think it had been a series of not wanting to go to sleep because I felt like something was going to happen, I guess. And I'm not a nervous person by any means, but so I fell asleep, you know, because I fell asleep, and then I'm awoken by what feels like something jumping into my chest, into my heart, like a freaking force just slammed into my chest and into my heart. And then immediately I thought, my first thought is that, am I having a heart attack? Is what I thought. But then I look up, and then I have, there is a grid, made a grid overlay, and they're over my vision everywhere I look. And it was rectangles, rounded corner rectangles all over the place, you know. And so I'm looking everywhere, and then and I'm looking just in my room, and this is so strange. And if I focused on one of the grids, one of the rectangles, it would start to wobble and then get bigger in size, which was very, very strange. It made me feel like it was either like some kind of, almost like a control panel, or a destination, like something could have happened if I focused on the one. But I was very much, and then I felt like my body was floating up, and I really fought that. I fought it big time, because I didn't want to be out of control. And so then finally I was sitting there, because I'm sitting up and I'm looking into my clothes rack. And then what I hear is two male voices, one in a foreign language, which I have no clue as to what it was, but it sounded very, very far away, which is strange. And then one in English. And there was a series of questions, and I don't remember them. I only remember the last question, but the sense of it was that everything's going to be fine. It was all very reassuring. I don't remember the questions, but there was an explanation, and everything was going to be fine. And then the last question that I heard was, who is Michael's teacher? That was the question. And I said, no one, you know, and then that was basically it. So it was a very strange event, because I felt like I was interviewed or interrogated by something, and I couldn't see any of this. So it was a very strange dream or vision or whatever you call it. But what was interesting about that is that I heard much later about what is the name of that person who did DMT down in the jungles. He's passed now, but he talked about machine elves. I forget the name of this guy. I'm sure your viewers will know it. But there was a researcher who went down there, who did the ayahuasca and did things with the DMT. You've heard of DMT? Okay. So he talked about like how these machine elves or something like that would jump into his chest. He'd have a vision. He'd go on an ayahuasca trip, and a being would jump into his chest, and that they would talk in different languages, which I thought, I only heard about that later. So I thought, what an interesting parallel, because that's almost like a DMT type experience, but just no DMT, you know, nothing like that. It was a very strange thing. And the fact that they asked, you know, who is Michael's teacher, made me focus upon what was the correct answer to that, and their obvious interest in him. And also, if they're able to know what people are thinking, why wouldn't they be doing that directly to him? So there's a meaning to that question, not just a question, but perhaps it was a guide to, like, maybe you should be maybe I should be looking into that, or exploring that further, is what I took from it, you know?
Well, you have to ask yourself, who are you really? Are you, like, yeah, of course you're more than, you know, the physical,
Right.
But at night, who you are really, because a lot of us, we some of us leave our bodies. A lot of experiencers, they work on ships. So they leave their body, they work at night on the craft, and they come back, and during the day they're human.
Yeah.
So again, with that, because you've got a lot of dream stuff that not everyone has. You know, they're not the normal type of dreams that
They're not normal.
the normals have. So there's something going on that aspect. So perhaps you might get, answers down the road. I'm really hoping so.
I think so too. I've also come to believe in some ways that just in a very like I'm always giving my husband like figuring things about the common sense stuff. You know, he's big picture stuff, but as far as like the common sense stuff, I can help him a lot in some ways in understanding maybe perhaps a situation that he might not understand. So perhaps perhaps I'm supposed to guide him in that way.
Okay.
You know, I don't know.
Nice.
Okay, what's the next picture?
Smoke figure in the wrong.
Oh, I'm in the wrong. Okay, this is something that this was an interesting thing. Like there's I was in bed again and I was going to bed, falling asleep, and then my feet were exposed. I didn't have a cover on them. And then I felt like somebody's holding my feet down. And then I opened my eyes and there's like a smoky figure was starting to form right there in my room, holding my feet. And then in this awful, croaky, raspy voice, it croaked out, "You are in the wrong." And then I believe I just sat up and I just said, "Stop it," or "No." I think I said, "Stop it." And then it just went away. And I kind of felt like that was that was my only experience with anything negative. It's like either a negative spirit or something like that, that obviously didn't like me. But I wasn't going to put up with anything from anybody, if I felt like they were either trying to scare me or something like that. So I don't know if that's technically a ghost story or what. I don't think that's anything to do with aliens, but I feel like we have like our reality, then we have a spirit world.
Yeah.
And I've also believed that we have something of a bit of a nature spirit, like it's something very, very much attached to the earth, to water, almost like elementals, I guess you would call it. So that was the story behind that drawing.
Wow.
Yeah.
My dad had a shadow figure, in his bedroom that felt him up at night, but that was probably his dead mother that passed away a few days before. I had my shadow beings at night. There were 5, but there's that's another story. But
yeah,
they've dark figures. But it appeared as smoke. So there was smoke and it formed into a humanoid.
It was forming into something, and I stopped it.
Okay.
By barking at it.
You did well.
Yeah.
You did well. Okay. Do you want to talk about Pan's Labyrinth?
Oh yeah, that drawing. As these things start happening, as these interactions started happening, you start getting almost like prophetic dreams. The only reason I drew that was because I had this dream in which I was in a building, almost like an office building, and then I pushed up on a wall, and then like a door, perfectly like the wall was like door shaped or whatever. I pushed out like a door, and I put it aside. Walked into this other part of the building. There was a huge long like conference table and some shadow figures at the end, I could tell were just there. And then there was like cake and stuff on the table, and I had my spirit guide, and so I thought, I wasn't hungry, but I went ahead and had some cake. And then those figures were just watching me. And then of course in the dream it went later on. I had to I was closing this huge Ziploc thing, and there was roaches, these huge roaches in the bag. They weren't there at first, otherwise I wouldn't have touched it. But I was trying to close it, and then these roaches just started climbing up my arms. So I was telling the story to my husband and my coworker friend, and they both said, "Have you seen Pan's Labyrinth?" And I said, "No, I haven't." I didn't even know that movie existed. And basically, those are almost like those were a couple of scenes from Pan's Labyrinth, but in more like an office setting, which would be something that I would understand, you know, the conference table instead of like the thing with the, I don't know what that thing was. With
the eyeballs,
Yeah, they had, so mine wasn't scary at all, but they were freaking out as I was telling the story, because they said, have you seen Pan's Labyrinth? And I just thought of Labyrinth and David Bowie from like the 90s or the 80s, that old movie. I said, well, no, I never watched that either. But so I thought that was it. And that's happened several times. Like you start having these things, and it's a bit of the future or some information about something you didn't know. Like that was definitely an allusion to Pan's Labyrinth, but just in my head. And I would only get to watch that movie by telling my husband and my friend about it, and they said, you got to see this movie. So it doesn't mean much. It's just like something that happened.
You've also called in craft a lot of, if you know during CE5s.
Yeah, CE5s on the back porch, and we saw a lot of them. My husband he's better with the meditation than I am, and he has a special connection. But they would come and we would just stay out there, and they would come in like satellites, and then they'd get big, and then they'd blink, and then they'd go on. And they would do this a lot. We'd probably see like maybe like 20 flybys in a night or something like that, you know. We had another time in which we had been out working. He worked for the state for a bit, and he had to do some kind of some conservation work, and so he camped in this gravel pit. And then this one time, what looked like a meteor coming in with the sparks and the trails came in, and then it turned into like a satellite. Like it stopped being a meteor, became like a satellite, and then this plane had been coming by, and then it changed directions to follow the plane. And then it stopped over our camp because unbeknownst to me at the time, my husband had been
flashlighting, or
yes, thank you, clicking the flashlight, and so it stopped, and it got this huge light over us. He thought we lost time, but I don't think so. And then all night, then we're in a gravel pit. All night we hear tiny little trickles of like gravel falling. No animals, just gravel falling. It was very strange. And then he said, I forgot, after it got done with doing the bright light over us, it started taking off, and then did this incredibly fast, like, this incredibly fast angle, and it zoomed out into the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. It was, I couldn't make sense of it at the time. I was not like saying, hey, that's a UFO. I mean, my husband was that. I said, well, I don't really know. I mean, maybe they have some kind of governmental craft or drone that can do that. You know, that's how my mindset at the time. Yeah. You know, no sound either when it was right over us. No, I thought, is this a helicopter with the bright light? You know, no sound.
When we see something extraordinary that we can't relate to, well, you know, I guess our brain kicks in and tries to match it to something we understand, but it's not that. I remember a story, somebody was looking at a craft, and he knew he was seeing beings within the ship, mm-hmm. But I think the dad beside him thought he was looking at a restaurant. Oh, it's a restaurant, but it's a restaurant in the sky. So it doesn't make sense. So again, your reality tries to match it to something,
right?
Sometimes it's too far-fetched that you can't really cope with it somehow.
Yeah, I know. It's like when I thought I was bringing my husband in to see that thing, and it was this you know, alien doctor woman. It's like, you know, where did my husband go? You know.
When I called in, the first day I was with my soon-to-be fiance at the time, she introduced me to, I didn't know that satellites would move in the sky. So I was amazed. Oh my God, things move. So, you know, the lights start moving. And the second day, 45 minutes within, around 9:45, you know, a craft came in just, you know, slowly over the house, maybe like 30 feet above the power lines. That's how close it was. And it was an red-orange orb ship, maybe like a cross between an egg and a big watermelon. But it was, from my point of view, it was this big. But a bit further away. So, you know, it might have been like 15 feet
Yeah.
across, but it came in slowly, no sound whatsoever, and it just glided slowly because we're doing the C5, and you know, she's an abductee. But you know, again, this was in August of 2013. A lot of people were outside at the time. It was warm, but nobody saw it. Even my neighbors were outside with kids. Nobody saw it. They show themselves to who they want to.
Yes.
So again, I think that could, you know, relate to you. And yeah, it's, you know, things happen when people do C5. You know, as long as they're in the right mindset.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that's afraid, they won't show up.
Right. I was going to say that. Yeah. I mean, it's like because they took such a long time approaching me as far as like the healing goes, because I had been in a lot of chronic pain. I'm not in pain anymore, but they had made so many attempts, and when I would startle or whatever, they just would stop approaching me because they know they don't want to scare me, you know.
Wow.
So
do you have any other stories you want to get into?
What's the next picture? Is there anything else?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Let me think. What's some of the most important things that have happened?
Or we could just wrap it up if you want.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that too. I mean, I think I have no, there was some healing, some minor healings. I met a Native American man because I had spoken to a spirit of a Native American man who I'd spoken to. Oh, here's the connection. So what I find interesting is the concept of our spirit body, and my husband had gone and we do offerings, and he had done an offering at this flat rock, and he felt like the earth moved, and he'd been out there by himself where we go camping. So I thought, well, he's just not making stuff up, but he's being fanciful. So when I had did an offering at that same rock where I had received a healing, I put some wild blueberries on it. I felt the ground move, and at the same time, exact same time that happened, a coyote was barking in the distance. Mm. So the exact moment, they basically reinforced to me that, no, your husband is correct. It felt like I know the ground did not move, but what I feel like happened is that they moved my spirit body up. So you had the sensation of movement without actually really being moved. And so I think, once again, I am unsure. I don't have the answers on this, but I just know that there is a fascinating connection to the spirits in the land, you know, and how they're connected to, you know, star people, star family, like you say. Mm-hmm. And there's countless other stories. So we could talk on forever, but we don't have to.
So you want to wrap this up then?
Sure, let's do that.
So thanks everyone, and thank you, Mary, for joining us. And thanks, it was really awesome. So something's really going on with you. Yeah. I hope you'll find some answers later down the road. And thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right. Bye-bye.